guys, welcome back. Well, we're so excited because fall is finally here. There's a little bit of crisp in the air, and that always puts me in the mood for warming, cozy, homemade soups. And so today, we're going to bring to you a ham and lentil soup. So exciting. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to get our burner on, and we're going to get it on a nice, brisk temperature because we're going to start a little bit of a saute of some tops or bottoms, maybe, I don't know, I guess bottoms of some green onion. So into that pot, and I like to use my Dutch oven. You can use any kind of like a 6 or 8 quart, probably 8 quart is better for this stock pot. But I really like my Dutch oven for this recipe. And I have saved the bottoms of these green onions, the white parts. And a lot of times, you know, you'll have a recipe that'll call for just the green parts or just the tops of your scallion. And then you're like, well, what do I do with the white part? Well, I like to save mine because they go into so many recipes, and you can use them. Like if you have a recipe that calls for white onion, sometimes, not every time, but sometimes you can go ahead and use those white parts of your scallion. All right, so that's in our pot, and we're going to start getting that moved around. While those are sauteing a little bit in there, we're going to start chopping our vegetables. These are not going to go in next, but we're going to go ahead and work on them while this other is getting its process done in that Dutch oven. And guys, if your family likes to do ham instead of turkey at Thanksgiving, and you're wondering what in the world to do with all those leftover pieces of ham and that ham bone, this is the perfect thing to do with it. We're going to use chunks of ham today, but you can absolutely use a ham bone in this. And just cut the ham off, the bone, during the cooking process. Okay, now we have sauteed our onion. It's nice and cooked through. It's getting translucent in those whiter parts. All right, so into that is going to go our water. Now, this calls for 8 cups of liquid. So we're going to do 4 cups of water and 4 cups of homemade chicken broth. And guys, remember that recipe? I showed you that when we did the one pot. Remember the one pot roasted chicken and vegetables? And I showed you all of that good broth off of that recipe. This is one of those things. This is one of those things that you can do with that leftover broth. I love things like that. You guys know I love stuff like that. Anything that pulls double duty in my house is a winner with me. And I don't want to waste any of that flavor. You can see I used my leftover yogurt container to save that chicken broth. Again, pulling double duty in my house. Okay, now we're just going to stir that and make sure that all of those pieces of the onion are off the bottom of the Dutch oven. Now we've got to bring that to a boil, and then we're going to start adding our other ingredients. And while we're waiting on that, we're going to take care of our celery so that we'll have our celery and our carrots ready to go in. And guys, remember, all of the amounts of everything will be in the description box below. By the way, guys, this is a wonderful thing. If you've got people in your family around the holidays that are gluten-free, this is a wonderful recipe for them because we're using gluten-free lentils, okay? So if you are looking for another recipe that you can fill the table with, or take in the crock pot or something to grandma's house or whatever for your holiday get together, this is a good recipe for that. Guys, I want to show you a little trick. This is almost coming to a boil. I gotta show you guys something. We're gonna add whole bay leaves into the soup, but sometimes if you find a recipe where the bay leaves need to be crushed up, take a bunch like this, put them in your spice grinder. Now, you got my little Cuisinart spice grinder right here, and if you've got one of these that you use to grind your coffee in, you know exactly what I'm talking about, okay? It's just like a coffee grinder. And then you just pulse it until those are finely ground. Not everybody likes fishing the bay leaves out of the soup. So if that's the case with your family, put your bay leaves in a spice grinder like this and grind them up into a fine powder, and then you're just going to use it like you would any other ground herb or spice. We are up to boil, so in is going to go our ham chunks. And like I said, if you're using a ham bone, you're going to put that in, right? And let that cook down, and then you'll pull the ham bone out, cut off the ham, and then return the ham back to the soup. No problem. In goes the lentils. And we're just going to stir that to get it all incorporated. All right? Now, we're going to let that cook for about 10 minutes till those lentils are getting soft. Now, after about 10 minutes, guys, check one of your lentils and see if they're starting to get a little soft. Once they're starting to get a little bit soft, takes about 10-15 minutes. Once they're starting to get a little soft, you're ready to add the rest of your spices and your vegetables. All right, so in's going to go our carrot and celery, our ground dried bay leaf, and remember you can use the whole bay leaf, that's not a problem. It's just, I don't know if you've ever served soup to a large table or have family or friends over that aren't used to bay leaf, and they fish a leaf out of their soup bowl and go, "There's a leaf in my soup," and you know, well, that's one of the reasons why if you grind them, then you won't have that happen. We usually just fish the leaves out of our bowls. I tell the kids they've won the prize if they get the leaf. All right, now, oh, and before we add, because we used homemade broth, guys, you want to taste your broth before you add salt and pepper, so that you know, like sometimes your ham that you'll add, sometimes that's a little saltier, sometimes it's not as salty. So it's just good to give it a little bitty taste test to see how much salt and pepper you need to add. That's pretty good. I don't think we need to add any more salt to that. I'm going to add just a few grinds of fresh ground pepper. All right, now we're going to turn that down a little bit to a little bit lower simmer, and we're just going to let that simmer for about 10 minutes for those vegetables to get nice and soft and finished all the way through. Okay guys, our ham and lentil stew has been going for about 45 minutes. And so now it's time for a taste test. You guys. And by the way, if you guys have not already subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that, because we're going to be having more ideas for what to do with leftovers coming up on the Thanksgiving holiday and all of that goodness coming up for you this fall. Oh, that looks so fantastic. Oh, that's good. The lentil in there is such a fresh alternative, especially if you're looking for something gluten-free. It's such a fresh alternative to the just everyday soups that you find in the market or at, you know, on the hot bar at a restaurant or stuff like that. It's just so yummy. And the fresh vegetable in there just brings so much brightness to the dish. And then you've got all that good smokiness from those ham chunks in there. and the depth of the homemade chicken broth and everything. And guys, remember, you can always use a canned chicken broth, or you can use bouillon with your water and just follow the directions of the bouillon on the package. I just happen to have that good homemade broth in the fridge. I usually do because of how much we're cooking in our household, but you can use a canned or a boxed chicken broth, no problem whatsoever. You guys got to give this a try. When you do, let me know. Leave me a comment and tell me how it worked for you. And in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy this ham and lentil stew, and we'll see you next time on Things Tina Does.